What's going on, everybody? Hey, there's Richard Estrada.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Is everybody hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Richard, you can hear me?
Morning, Gabby. Yes.
Richard Estrada. Oh, there he goes. Oh, he's on mute. You're still unmuted. But Richard, he's everybody, he's got that new Uber gig going on right now. Uber for seniors. So he's got to he's picking up people from one hospital, bringing them home and doing that stuff. So it's a really good thing that you're doing this, Richard. You're still muted, Richard.
Richard, you're
Okay, there we go. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I had to drop off a senior citizen, and I'm on my way back right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got off on the wrong place, taking them to the bridge to cross over to the airport. And I've never been there, so he gave me directions. He told me how to get there. And no, we got us lost, but we got him there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. Say, Richard, he does like community service work and everything. So you guys are ever out drinking and stuff?
You guys, yeah, give me a call anytime.
Yeah. So who else is on here? Let me see. How do I do this? Oh, just 12 of us so far. All right, just 12. How many of you liked George Morris yesterday? Was that a treat? That was a good treat.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
What we're doing, gang, those of you that are on here right now, is that we're going to collect 3, 4, 5, 6 brokers from around the country, along with 1 or 2 great agents from each office, and have a broker and agent panel and talk specifically about certain things like getting listings and how they're getting listings or sales or those types of things. So, being part of the system, it pays off in dividends that we can do this at a higher level and bigger scale than, most other companies. So I think that'll be really, really good for everybody. And I say that because it was my idea too. So.
Good idea. Joe, how's your back?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Richard. It's probably about the same as yesterday. Yep. It's part of, I don't know. It's part of something.
Part about getting old.
Yeah, let's mute that. Let's mute Jesus. We don't need to hear that anymore.
No.
He's probably drinking again. I don't need that stuff, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Good morning.
Who's that?
Ramos.
Oh, Mr. Ramos. Let's see what you look like in the morning. Are you even ready?
About to head out.
All right.
Stop lying, bro. No, you're not.
He's alive.
He's laying down in bed still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God. Chris, put a fucking shirt on and get up.
Hey, watch your language there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Excuse my little cousin there. He gets too crazy in the morning without his coffee.
Damn, he goes ghetto quick.
Real quick.
Yeah. What question? Hey, listen, before we get started with Juan in the meeting, what questions do some of you have so I can hear what they're going to be? How about who's MacBook? Hey, MacBook Zero. Why do you have your name, MacBook Zero?
MacBook Pro.
Okay.
Good morning.
So what questions do you have?
I'm good right now.
All right, got to think of one. Irene, I know you always have one. Hello.
Who is it for, Joe? Who's coming?
Who's already here? Juan Martinez from Vegas.
Juan Martinez. Who is he, Joe?
He's that guy in the screen right there. See that pretty guy with the red tie on?
Oh, okay.
He's got that full potential with your something. See one of them behind you, that guy right there?
Yeah, not everybody knows you, Juan.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay.
I would like to know what what he uses for his database.
Okay, we'll do database today.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, we're just going to wait a little bit longer. Hey, Juan. Good morning, Juan. How are you?
Good morning. How are we doing today?
Good. We're just waiting for more people to get on because we're just about at that time right now. I don't even. Are we at that time right now? I can't tell.
Yeah,
Take your time. I'm in no rush.
Yeah, let's do 9:02. Hey, good morning, everybody. Joe Viascusa, C21 All-Stars, here at the happiest place on earth, 9155 Telegraph Road in Pico Rivera. Hey, but Juan, we had a great time yesterday with George Morris. Obviously, you've been with George before, you and me, and he just really did a great presentation. I'm sure you're going to do the same. They're going to be softball questions. What are your agents doing to succeed in this pandemic? Which agents are actually having a tough time out there that haven't adjusted right to the market? You're the number one office right now in Vegas, correct?
Yes, sir.
So when you have two offices or three now?
Joe, we're now up to like 6 or 7 offices.
Oh, wow. Where have I been?
Wow.
So Juan bit up on that. Let's have multiple office thing. So that's cool.
We just acquired in Arizona, so we just added 2 more offices.
In Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like, tell Juan, it's like having multiple offices would be like having multiple Latino wives. You only need one. You only need one. There's no reason you'd want 5 or 6.
I know.
Hold on.
I know.
Is my wife here? Is she here? She didn't hear that. Is Joey's mommy here? Mommy's not online. Okay, good. Shoot. Sometimes I get my mouth running. So, hey, Juan, so 5 or 6 offices. How many agents you up to?
I think we're close to 270 around there.
Okay, good. So, one of the questions we're going to ask is how are you delivering training and how are we doing that connection? What your sales listings look like. Like us, we're probably off about 20% year to date. We thought we'd make a bigger cut into that, but last month we didn't have as good a month as the month before. We did about 100.
On listings taken or total sales or closings or what?
Closings. On closings.
Got it.
So in July we had 150 some closings. In June we had just over 200. And 200 always seems good. Last year at this time we did 300 closings, so we were at 50% month to date. So we were off considerably, and I think that's just bringing the pandemic to our front doorsteps last month. So, but sales are up, listings are up, and I think agents per person productivity is up also. So doing good there. So Juan, tell us a little about you, how long you've been with the system, and tell us about your office. And I think we're pretty similar in how we run our companies too.
Yeah, very, very similar and very unique. What you have there and the environment you have is very unique to the industry. And so, and we operate very similar to your operations. But my background really quick is I started in 2001. From 2001 to 2011, I sold over 4,000 homes. I averaged somewhere around 200 to 300 homes a year. Averaged about 1.5 to 1.8 million in earnings each year. My best year was 584 closed transactions, and that was 2011. Had a small team, so it was basically me and my wife that ran the back end operations, 2 to 3 buyer agents max. In 2011, did about the 584, 225 transactions were buyer transactions, and that was done with 3 to 4 buyer agents max at that time. So in 2000, and during that time, I owned a Remax, and it was just a small shop, no other agents, it's just my team. And then we decided to build a large brokerage, and we the option in 2011 was at the end of the year was, hey, can we grow this to 1,000, or do we just build a brokerage, coach, train, and teach others to do this? And so we decided to take that path. So 2012, we bought a Century 21. We felt the style that we list and sell and how aggressively we go out and prospect for listings. We felt that there was no better brand than the Century 21 system. Very similar to Joe, you guys know how to prospect, how to lead generate, go out and get business. And to have a big brand just creates instant credibility. And so we went down that path, and now 8 years later, we're about 270 agents, and we're teaching our agents how to prospect and coach and train and do all the great things that Joe and Richard do there.
Yeah, tell us how the changes happened in your market. Were you guys closed down like us for a couple months? No one came to the office.
Yeah, we've had lots of cases of COVID here within the company, and but we had one specific case, and this is when it first started. So we closed shop down, and so we reopened maybe a month later to the agents, not to the public, and it's the same situation right now. Our doors are not open to the public. You know, agents have access to come in and out, and so you get, you know, we have a good producers that are showing up to the office every day and working, and then the rest are, you know, many of them are at home, and so that is that's the reality of today. You know, I have a sales floor with 85 workstations, and you know, there's times there that, you know, you got 30 or 40, 50 people on the floor, and today there may be 2, 3, or 4, you know, at any given time. Now there's a difference, Joe. It is, I don't know how many people are in your office now, but when we had a one office setup, boy, I miss that time. You know, we had probably 100, 150 agents coming in and out at any different time in one location. We're spread out now, and so when you spread out, you lose the energy, you lose the environment, the enthusiasm with so many people in there. And so it is, so people aren't as motivated to show up to the office. It is a challenge, you know, during the COVID period.
Now, we know statistically so far, you know, it hasn't been measured that much, but they're saying kids in workforce, especially with the workforce, we're not as productive working from the home that we were coming to the office. So we know that as being true, and I've known that for 30 some years. But, you know, take me back to when this happened, the agents that are doing, well, let me ask you a first question. One of the ones I asked George yesterday, in your perspective, Juan, because you've trained a lot of people and you've helped a lot of people. If you were a brand new agent today, what would you do day one?
Okay, so I look at the business and I say, I know what I did day one in 2001, and I was fortunate enough to connect with Mike Ferry before I even got my license. So I have been in coaching almost 20 years, nonstop, never stopped through the last recession. And in a period of time, I had 2 coaches, and sometimes even there was a period of time I had 3 coaches when I was listing and selling and doing it very intensely. But so as now I see myself in the business as an observer. I coach, I train, I see the patterns of new licensees and what they do and all that stuff. And so over the years, you know, I've just kind of developed my own thing that I say there's 4 things that need to happen on a new licensee. And this is just my thoughts here, is number 1 is 2 hours of practice every single day. And when I say practice, that means 30 minutes, maybe company role play, 30 minutes external role play, 15 minutes of chanting, 15 minutes of writing out your script, 30 minutes of hearing audio, pre-recorded script, and you stick to one specific script for a 90-day period so that you rehearse it, internalize it. I spent 10 years, I mean, I've been 20 years role playing, but 10 years of my career, I role played 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, 2 different role play partners in the morning. So 10 role play partners, switch them out every 6 months. And I did it in a very intense way. And that's where I learned the communication skills that I have today. So what would I recommend is, first is the 2 hours of practice. 3 to 5 hours of lead generation. Okay, and it all depends on how strong the desire is to succeed, but 3 to 5 hours of outbound prospecting, 1 hour of lead follow-up, and then 2 hours of previewing. And the reason why for previewing is if you have the skills to communicate and you have the product knowledge, because you're going out and seeing property and learning what the market offers, and product knowledge is, I have a systematic way, is in our MLS, we probably have like 20 or 30 areas we call. And so you stick to one area 1 week. Monday, you look at homes from 100 to 300, Tuesday from 300 to 400, you know, and so on. And then by Friday, you're looking at condos and townhouses, maybe Saturday, new homes, so that you learn that specific area, you know what price per square foot is going. And eventually you should be at a point where you walk into homes and you know the same floor plans. And if I'm talking to an expired or a FSBO and I say, yeah, you're in the 1,384 square foot plan with KB homes, or even homes that were built in the 60s, the 70s, or whatever, you got to know your market. You got to have that product knowledge, and you have to know what's going on. So that gives you the confidence to go out and list and sell in a big way.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question, because some of you, and I know Jeanette out there wanted this question, that how did you, non-institutional, get listings? What do you think, what was your best method of how to get mom and pop out there, those types of listings, non-institutional, just regular listings?
Yeah, so it is, at the pinnacle of my career, which is probably 2005 and 2006, it was simply, I was calling new expireds, and then I would move to for sale by owners. Then I would move to past client center of influence, created a large database by that point. Then I would go to old expireds, and then I would eventually go to just solds. And so that was basically my structure. Now you're taking 200 or 300 listings a year. You're going to start, there gets to the point where there's only so many expireds, only so many FSBOs that you're going to take. And so at that point, when you're doing a couple hundred transactions, you start investing in other sources. But at the end, the engine was the outbound prospecting that I was doing every day. And so, but there did get to a point where the database got big enough where I did not have to do just listed or just sold calls to fill the gap.
Okay.
And I'll share this, Joe, is by 2005, we're taking about 300 listings a year, traditional listings, mom and pops, just your standard homeowner. And it got to a point where I delegated everything in the business, and I got to a point where I narrowed it down to practice, prospect, lead follow-up, and present. So price reductions, which was a tough thing to do. It's probably the toughest thing when you're committed to doing your price reductions. It's one of the toughest things to do when you have a lot of inventory. But buyer presentations, the showings, the transactional side of the business, everything was delegated. And then by 2005, we're taking, let's just say 300 listings a year. I said, man, how can I delegate that piece to the presentation to where I could get to a point where I spend 8 or 9 hours on the phones every day? Because I come to realize that was the single most important thing that I could do. And so I had an office manager, train them to present. So it got to a point where 90% of the listings that I was taking was in the office. So I could get expireds and FSBOs to come to the office. And 90% of the listings that were taken were by my office manager. So I got to a point where 8 to 9 a.m. was purely outbound, out of state agents or out of our marketplace practice. And then from 9 to 6 p.m., it was basically outbound prospecting, 45 minutes on, 5 minutes lead follow-up, 10-minute break. And that happened every hour. So let's just say lunch was from 11:50 to 12 o'clock back on the phones. And that's how I operated for a very long time.
A 10-minute lunch?
That's it.
Oh, wow.
Didn't need any more.
All right, let me ask you, what was the difference between new expireds and old expireds? What classified those two?
So new expireds for me was 7 days.
Okay.
You go creating your own little systems and stuff. And so for me, it was within 7 days, if I cannot convert that person to an appointment. So if they hang up on me today, I'm going to call tomorrow. I would, at some point I had, Joe, a hammer. They were calling ahead of me because I was trying to bring my contacts to contracts down. And so they would call ahead to see if they relisted or whatever. But in that 7-day window, I would give it 7 days, whether I was able to get the appointment or not. And then it would go to a different file. And that file would go to, I would call them at night. I would call them on a Saturday. Then I call them once a month to once a quarter. And then, so that was one system. And then another system was just going back so many years and just calling old expireds continuously.
Let me ask you, where were you most successful, on the new expireds or on the old expireds?
New expireds.
New? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, in a market like today, you got to get more creative, and you got to be willing to go back. So it is folks like, let's just say Chad and other folks that I know, they go back like 5 or 8 years of data of expireds, and you say, why? It's just data. And it is, when we're in such a tight market that we are in today, data is going to be critical. So let me just give one thought here is, the number one Century 21 agent works for a friend of ours, of Joe and myself, Greg Harrelson. So it is Kevin Mills, the number one C21 agent. He basically is on the phone 7 or 8 hours a day. He's doing what you guys do and what we do. But there's one thing is that he's crazy about his data, meaning he subscribes to 7 or 8 different companies, whether it's Vulcan or Redex or this or that, to get as much expired data as he can. And he doesn't even delegate that to the assistant. He handles all of that data himself because he doesn't want to mess up the information. So on an expired, if he can't get a hold of that homeowner, or the numbers are not matching up, he's calling the neighbor and says, hey neighbor, I have this offer for this property right next door, for the owner next door, and I'm trying to get a hold of him, but I can't, and this offer is going to expire. Oh, I know who he is. Let me get you the cell number. And he'll go to that extent to work the business. He takes 300 or 400 listings a year. 87, 89% of the listings he takes comes from expired listings. It's because the data, he knows how to communicate. When you guys are in a tight market that you're in right now, what happens is you don't see any expireds. You're like, hey, expireds have run out. There's no FISBOs or whatever, or everybody's cannibalizing each other. Data is going to play a critical role for you to be able to prospect for 8 or 10 hours a day.
Good. Talk about momentum, with your past customers, when you're at the peak of what you're doing, how did momentum play into your market? How many people are calling you saying, Juan, I hear you, I see your signs. You sold my friend a house, my uncle a house. How much did that fuel your business?
It is, Joe, my database got to about 4,000 or 5,000 past clients in center of influence. And it is, so think about this. It's people people you don't know. Mm-hmm. So you're prospecting to people that you don't know. And really the purpose, if I take an expired today, it isn't about that expired or closing. It's taking care of them and then them becoming a past client for life, because they will generate 5 or 10 deals over the next 10-year period. So what happened is I got to a point where I built this big database. I'm basically, taking the database, dividing it by 60 working days, which is 3 months, and I'm talking to everybody every 90 days. But then I moved to newsletters and postcards and appreciation parties and calendars. And it was about 8 or 10 things that I was doing during that time. And then all of a sudden, the return on investment. So let's just say if I have 1,000 people, I'm getting a 9, 10, 11% return. So if I have 1,000, I'm generating 100 deals from past clients in center of influence. So what happens is that I transition from blood and guts, meaning hard work, prospecting every day, just building a business. And eventually I start transitioning into ease and elegance. And the ease and elegance came from when you do right by your client and you service them and you take care of them and you bring value to what the real estate aspect to the customer, you start building loyal fans and raving fans, better yet. And so when those raving fans start growing, all you have to do is say, I want to make $1 million a year. And if I want to make $1 million a year, I got to close 100 deals. Okay, good. Prospect as much as you can until you build 1,000 past client center of influence. Create a systematic way to touch and connect them continuously. And you will eventually, and do what's right by them, take care of them, learn to read strong, good books about customer service, Raving Fans being, a big book that I read multiple times. And what happens is, Joe, that I learned, I spent a lot of years, I remember working with Matthew Ferry for years on neurolinguistic programming and doing all this skill-based stuff for years. But eventually when I moved to Ease and Elegance, what happened was, I started reading books like on Deepak Chopra, a series of books that was all about the customer, all about making other people feel important. And when I started doing that transition, it was just like the past client center of influence business blew up. And there was just an abundance of business coming in. And those customers were loyal even through the deep parts of recession. They come to you and they confide and they trust you that you're going to give them sound advice. So it's no longer about sales or trying to sell anybody. It was about contribution, and then all that business came back. It was just a strange dynamic, a shift that I made of in 05, 06 of contribution, and it was like the business just started flowing in a big way.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about coaching. You know, I'm being interviewed by a magazine, one of those realtor magazines. They wanted to know about coaching. And I went back, and I've been in coaching like you, probably a little bit longer, 30 plus years with Mike, John Cheplek, and different people. And I counted how much money it cost me. It's just under $1 million for 33, 34 years. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but it only comes to about $30,000 a year. How much is coaching do you think has influenced you and your agents in the business?
For me, Joe, I wouldn't be here. I would have known you had I not joined coaching. And I joined coaching. So I got with somebody, Jeremy Diaz, who was, I don't know if you ever remember that name. We're going back 20 years, and this was one of the sales reps for Mike, who's still a friend till today. But I connected with him. My wife worked for a top producer 20 plus years ago. That was a Mike Ferry agent. And she says, hey, here's some video or audio or whatever. I'm looking at it while I'm getting licensed. I sign up for coaching 60 days into listing, into the moment I got my license. And I was paying out the $1,000. I was in business planning for a couple months, and then I switched over to one-on-one coaching back then. I never stopped, and that's been going on for 20 years. I've been coaching with Mike now since 2011, I think, or 10. So personally with Mike, and it is right now we probably pay out, I'm going to say $5,000 to $7,000 in coaching monthly for us, and partially that we support the agents on that are committed to coaching. But the point is here is that coaching has given me the exposure.
What happened
My
to
phone's
Juan?
connected to
There
my
you go.
iPad, so I apologize. I'm back. It has created exposure. If I think about coaching alone, one-on-one coaching, it's not even the coaching. It is the exposure to big top producers across the country. Like if I think of my broker friends right now, that a lot of them, or pretty much all of them, are in the MFO system. We talk the same language. We understand the same stuff. But when I was listing and selling, the Neil Weichels, the Ed Kaminsky, Val Caro, all these big names that you guys see up on panels, these are people that we did masterminds, we got together, we did all kinds of things. And so the exposure of others that are doing big, that is probably the biggest thing in the coaching world that you get. So it is, if you're, you know, one of my agents just said the other day that we were interviewing her, and she says, coaching, everybody thinks of coaching as an expense. I look at it as an investment.
Yep,
and so that's she said it really well there.
Yeah, you said it right, because we, these names last week, we had Girl Power 2 weeks ago. We had Karen Bernardi, you know her, Marty Rodriguez, Vicky Montego up in Washington. We had one of our past agents here, Nahid, 100 plus transaction years. So, you know, it's having those connections that, like you, I called you one day, say, hey, will you participate? You said, what day? And vice versa. So Joe and George and I were talking about having this type of panel with 4 or 5 great brokers and 4 or 5 great agents to be able to bring this type of environment to the agents. Because we know when we're out there working, sometimes it can get very lonely, and it can get very, you know, it's lonely sometimes out there. You think you're the one doing the business, especially if you're doing it at a high level. So it's, you know, and thank you for doing this. So who has questions for Juan? I don't want to monopolize his time or your time, gang. Who has a question? Because I know all of you, you're trying to send me questions here, but who has a question they'd like to ask? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Juan,
Please.
hi. Hey, so you had a lot of people, it sounds like, working for you. What's your retention rate, and like, what's your plan for replacement, right? Because some people are obviously going to replicate what you're doing. And, you know, with that much volume, like, how did you create customer loyalty? Did they take some of those people because they probably had a closer relationship with them, because you might have delegated that stuff? So what's your retention rate on the talent, and how many people do you have working for you?
Okay, so you threw a lot of questions here. So your question is, how do we retain past client center of influence, or who?
No,
who
you specifically, not your brokerage, your specific staff, right? When you're doing 300, 400, 500, like, not your brokerage, you, Juan Martinez, like, how many people were on your staff, team, delegation, all of that stuff?
It depends what year, but I would probably say you got a listing coordinator, a closing coordinator. The business is not that complicated. It is so at that period of time, I had a listing coordinator, closing coordinator, had the buyer agents, and so I may have had 2 closing coordinators. I may have had 2 listing coordinators at different times, and then I basically had an office manager that kind of managed the buyer's team and managed the staff, would hire, et cetera, et cetera. But there were times, so let's just say a closing coordinator that's managing 30, 40, or 50 escrows is going to have burnout. And so we did have challenges, those periods of time that they would just walk out or they wouldn't make it in their first couple of weeks because the amount of escrows and the tension from customers and all parties, we would burn through them, and that was a challenge. So one of the challenges running a team and doing it, doing high volume, is that you are going to have talent issues from your buyer agents. That's the same thing, or the staff. So you got to have some form of HR in place where you're constantly recruiting, just like you're looking for listings every day. You're constantly recruiting for better and better talent. And so, yeah, it was a challenge. And if I look back, that was one of the price reductions were the biggest, was for us hard. When I delegated that was just a big relief because it allowed me to do what I enjoyed best, and that was prospecting and lead generating. But it is, when you talk about escrows, price reductions, all that stuff, it's tough on your people. So of course you got to pay them well, take care of them, and be ready to cut if they're not serving the customers and they're not representing you in the right way. Hopefully that answered your question, Joey.
Yeah, that's Roger. Who else had a question?
I'm sorry,
more
Roger.
questions, gang, so we can.
I have a question. Juan, what systems did you follow, or what did you do in order to keep stay in front of your COI and your past clients? I have a large database of COI, but I just find it really hard to stay in front of them and just stay in touch with them.
So this is simple. It is, how many past client center of influence do you have?
So, I mean, my past client database is not that big, but for COI, I have about 280, 290.
So, okay, so this is me. It is, and I didn't do this in the beginning, but eventually this is what my obsession became. When I realized the return on investment was my past client center of influence and everything that I worked for. If I had a banner in realtor.com and I converted some listings from there, or I'm outbound prospecting on an expired or just sold or whatever, and I'm generating that business, I came to a point I realized that I have all these past clients in center of influence, and if I only service them right and I built a relationship with them, that the return on investment was just super powerful. Now, keep in mind, I would take a listing, I would take an expired, I wouldn't even take it. I talked to them, I got the appointment, I found the motivation, then they would go to the listing coordinator, they would pre-qualify, they do the CMA, then it would go to my office manager, he would go present, whether it was in the office or out in the field. Listings taken, listing coordinator goes out there, then it goes into escrow. I would not talk to the customer when I'm doing high volume, and I'm not suggesting that you guys do this, I would not talk to the customer from the beginning all the way to the end. When I would call was when we closed. Hey, Betty, congratulations. How did the team do? Oh my gosh, Juan, you're so great. You're so amazing, this and that, because the team was trained. All good news at all times. It is Juan that is delivering the message. Hey, Betty, Juan asked me to reach out to you. Juan just talked to the appraiser. Want to give you great news. The value came in, so we did a good job there. All good news, good news, good news, all the way to the end. So I rarely would have to interact. However, the moment they close, I'm calling once a week, then 2 weeks, month, and then I go into my quarterly routine. So if I have 1,000 people in my database, I have to talk to 16 people a day. If I have 500, I got to talk to 8 people a day. If I have 250 in my database, I got to make 4 contacts a day. You take your total number divided by 60 working days, which is 3 months, and you're just going to start at letter A and you're going to go through it. But let me take this here to the next level. I got to a point where I got so obsessed with the database that, just like I mentioned, Kevin Mills is managing all of those 7 or 8 different sources of expireds and putting it into a database. I got to a point where the team would enter all the contact information into the database, but then I would have certain things that I would go through. So let's just say that I go to a contact. If I have the routing number to their zip code, okay, or whatever 4-digit number after, I knew I put my hands on it, double checked it, made sure the periods, the initials, everything was in that contact information that was correct. When I called them, I would log in a few words and say, great conversation. GC was the initials for that. And I would have all this information so that every time I'm calling them, I know my last conversations with them. I know their history. I know everything about them. I mean, the database was dialed in because I was building a relationship, and the return on investment, when they saw the value over a long period of time, the referrals were flooding in, and that was my biggest investment. It was like all this work that I did ultimately was to have this incredible CRM system that had all my data in there for my customers, and it just took it to a whole different level.
Good. Hey, two last questions, Juan and everybody. Hey, Zuli, you're going to do the last one. Pete, you're up right now.
Yes, he kind of answered the question, what he just said, but let me ask you another question. What was your morning routine like when you woke up prior to prospecting? Before you get into prospecting, what would you do at the office, like to prep for your rest
So
of the day?
right when you got out of bed, Juan, what would you do first? Would you go to the bathroom?
It depends. Over the years, it was treadmill. We're going back 15, 18 years ago. It is the exercise in the morning, burn off, some of the craziness. Sometimes it would be at night to burn it off. And then it is getting to the office, probably 7:15, 7:30. It depends what year it was. But one of the things is having a clean, organized environment, nothing there that is a distraction. And the first thing is just getting into a relaxed state of mind and doing 10 minutes of thinking every day. So the 10 minutes of thinking is, so let me give you an example. If I'm taking 3 listings per week, and my mind is saying, how do I get down to 4 listings per week? So I get a think pad, and I basically, on a think pad, I am thinking out how to get that 4th listing per week. And so I'm writing out ideas. I'm flushing things out. There's no barriers. There's no things of saying, no, that's not going to work. Just you keep writing, you keep writing, you keep writing. Next day, you do the same thing. And then 30, 60 days go by, and then all of a sudden, bingo, I figured out one thing that's going to take me to that extra listing per week. And so that thinking time was critical in moving the business forward. Then at 8 o'clock, it is from 8 to 9. I'm in role play, 2 different role plays. There was a period of time that the role play was external, 8 to 8:30, with a strong producer across the country. 8:30 to 9, it was role play within the team. And then from 9 o'clock to 6 p.m., it was basically 45 minutes of lead generation, 5 minutes follow-up, 10-minute break, back at it at every hour.
Okay, good. All right, Zuli, you got the last question. You out there, Zuli? Ooh.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
There you go.
What CRM do you use, and also auto dialer?
CRM, and what's the other question?
Auto dialer?
Auto dialer. Okay. So CRM, the CRM that I used back then, we went from top producer 20 years ago, top producer, to it's a database that no longer exists. I can't even remember the name, agent something. But I'm going to say this, all these CRMs do a lot of the same stuff. And Century 21 provides a CRM. It's ultimately, the bigger challenge for everyone is actually touching your contacts, putting in there, caring for your CRM, caring for how the contact information, making sure postcards, newsletters, all that stuff is going out, that you're calling them every day. That is going to be more important than the type of CRM that you have. You could literally use an Excel spreadsheet. I don't recommend it because on some of these CRMs, you have the ability to send out good emails, videos, content, and all kinds of good stuff. And the database system will do the signatures and all that stuff. So sure, so there's plenty of CRMs out there. I can name a whole bunch, but at the end, it is utilizing and leveraging it. So is there a favorite CRM that I currently have right now? No, I don't. We use Real Geeks. We use a whole series of stuff, but I don't recommend. I would say you do your homework, talk to your people there, and whatever works, utilize it. The second thing in auto dialing, I'm old school. And so the way that I did it was I had these Plantronic boxes, and then I had on the headset, I would have 2 different lines coming out, okay? And so when I was making calls, these were analog lines. And so when I would dial, I'm dialing one, I'm dialing the other. It got to a point where in just sold calls that I would do 15 or 17 years ago, I got to a point where the max I was doing was 48 contacts an hour. So I'm talking to Joe on one side, and I already know there's no hesitation, no motivation, and I have the ability to talk to a second person at the same time. So I'm fully focused on my dialers and dialing away, and I'm dialing here, I'm dialing here. Somebody picks up, I have a specific script that I'm going to say, and I'm only listening for one thing. And while I'm dialing the other, sometimes I'd have 2 people on the phone, hang up on one, continue the conversation on the other, keep dialing on the next one. So I'm not a major fan of auto dialing. It is the most that I have seen my agents do in auto dialing is 18, 19 contacts an hour. And it's like, what are you doing? And what happens is when the computer's up and you are multitasking and you got emails and video and YouTube and this and you're shopping and you're auto dialing all at the same time, too much multitasking, you're not focused at the task at hand. So for me, manual dialing, 18 contacts, I could do that with a single dialer from the desk and do 18 contacts an hour.
Good. Hey, everybody, I know some of you have a few questions, but I want to be respectful of Juan's time because I know he has a schedule that he has to keep up. We're going to do this also in the near future, Juan, that we're going to have a top broker panel, the agent panel for everybody in all of our offices so we can have a bigger network of what we do. But hey, on behalf of all us, Juan, give him a big hand. I want to appreciate you and thank you for what you do for us. And thank you for taking my call and being put on the spot right away and said you would do it with no hesitation. So I really appreciate that. Likewise for you.
Oh.
And tomorrow,
Always
gang,
there
guess who
for
we have? We have Neil Schwartz tomorrow, Juan. Neil Schwartz
Very
tomorrow.
nice.
Yeah, so we came full circle. Neil Schwartz and myself, and Neil's going to do the same thing at the end of the week, and it's just going to be a great week for all of us. And hopefully that we write those notes down and figure out what we have to do to bridge the gap between where we're at today and where we want to be. So just give Juan a big hand.
Thank you.
All right, gang.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Joe.
Juan. Hey, everybody, get back to work. I'll see you when I see you. Adios.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.